Ever find your Drupal site is a mess in no time? You've got all the content floating around, yet no neat way of sorting it. That's where taxonomies become involved. They're simply Drupal's mechanism for labeling and classifying content. In this tutorial, I'm going to review exactly what taxonomies are and how they function, and how you're able to utilize them to make your website much more structured and easier to use. So why use taxonomies? Well, if you have a lot of content and you have, for example, similar content, so in this case we have a tutorial, which is the one that we're doing right now, and we only have one instance of this tutorial. But if we had, say, 100 instances of these tutorials and we want some sort of way to sort these and say, okay, this tutorial is about taxonomies and maybe this tutorial is about site building, and we want to be able to filter that so we can use that data in an easier way. One way to do that would be through taxonomies. So if we go ahead and we edit this node, we can see one of the fields here is a category, which is going to point to the taxonomy vocabulary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll up to category, which is going to be right down here. So here you can see we have our vocabulary and then we have site building. So if I go over to structure and then taxonomy, you can see here's our vocabulary name, and then here's the terms that we have. In this case, we just have site building. So if I want to go and create a new taxonomy, I can create a vocabulary and we'll call it something. For example, we may call it, difficulty. Say you've difficulty for tutorial, beginner level, intermediate, and then we have the choice if we want to make revisions or not. So we go ahead and save that, and now we can have our vocabulary and we can have the terms that we can add to it. So another thing we can do with taxonomies is we can store data on them. So if we want, we can come into here and we say, oh, on our taxonomy we want to store some sort of information like, I don't know, a description. If I'm just making something up, go ahead, continue, and then we can put in that information there. And now when we go to list or difficulty, we can go click add term, and then you can say name, description, and we just fill out that information. So for example, if we want to say beginner, and we can say this is beginner level, if I could spell that right. So then we go ahead and save and go to list, and you see we have beginner, and then maybe we say intermediate. And say this is intermediate. And then we go and say that. So now what we can do is, let's say for example we want to use our taxonomy to be able to sort information. We can now go to, let's say, our content type, and I'll say article as an example. So I'm going to go ahead and click manage fields, and we'll go ahead and add a taxonomy, which is going to be a reference here, and then we're going to say we're going to point to a taxonomy term. So this here is going to be called difficulty level, and then I'm going to hit continue. Machine readable name, okay, that's already taken, so we'll call it something different. So taxonomy term, and we'll say that we can only point to one item. Vocabulary field is required. Okay, and this is the vocabulary we'll want to use. So in this case, we just created the vocabulary difficulty, and then we'll say we're going to use that vocabulary. And then we'll go ahead and save that. So now when we go to content, and we go and we create a new node, or a new article, I'll put in, for example, article 1, and then here we can see our difficulty level, and if we start typing, we can select the difficulty level, and then we can save that. So I'll go ahead and create another example. If I go ahead and say article 2, And then I'll say something different. Oh, not tags, my bad. We'll say intermediate. Just spelled it wrong, but that's okay. Go ahead and save that. And now we have two, I'll go back to that page. You can see we have our articles, article 1 and article 2, and then they both have taxonomies that they point to, and we can filter them based off what taxonomy they point to. So if we want to create an example, one thing we can do is we can go to structure, views, and we can just make a simple example here where we create a new view and then we'll call it articles, and we're going to show content. We'll create a page, call it articles, and then yeah, whatever, save and edit. And then here we can filter criteria, and we could say filter on, difficulty. And then you can see difficulty level, and there's the field that points to the taxonomy. Vocabulary, difficulty, autocomplete, drop down. And then we can expose this filter to change it, and then go ahead and save that. So now you can see here are all the articles we have, and then we can say, oh, I want the beginner article, and we can apply that. And you can see now we only have the article for beginner. So the reason this could be useful is that you have a website, for example, you have a ton of nodes of the same content type, and you want to be able to organize it, or if you want to be able to do searches, it's a way that you can, it's something that you can use as a way to be able to organize your data. Because if you didn't have, taxonomy, for example, on this content, then it'd be a lot more difficult to figure out, oh, is this content in which category? That's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.